Good afternoon, and welcome to the Arts Council of Hillsborough County's Professional Development for Artists Grant Panelist meeting. I'm Martine Collier, Executive Director of the Arts Council. I appreciate you all attending this, and we're going to introduce our panelists in just a moment. We are waiting for one remaining panelist who is having trouble getting in, so we're checking on that. But there's some housekeeping things we can do while we are waiting, including introducing our panelists. First of all, the panel review process is a very important step in awarding funding to individual artists for professional development. The public dollars that fund this grant program are limited, and we count on our panelists to select grant recipients that provide evidence of merit and will give back to the citizens of Hillsborough County as they become more accomplished in their discipline. So this takes a lot of time, and we really appreciate the contribution that our panelists make to this. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. I want to call on them. We're going to do this in alphabetical order. So let's start with Caitlin. I think you're muted, Caitlin.
I know. I got it now. Hi, I'm Caitlin Albritton. I'm an interdisciplinary artist, arts writer, and educator based in Tampa, Florida. I received my BFA from Savannah College of Art and Design and my MFA from Maryland Institute College of Art. In 2018. I've exhibited in museums and galleries internationally and was awarded the Arts Council of Hillsborough County last year in 2019 and was very grateful for it. So I'm glad to be here today on the review panel.
Okay, next we have Jade.
Hi everyone, my name is Jade. I was born in Tampa, but I currently live in Dade City. I received my BFA in studio art from USF in 2016. And shortly after graduation, I did a couple of residencies in Texas. And after that, I actually got a job at a public library where I currently am now. And I'm also pursuing my master's degree in library science to become a librarian. And this is my second time being a panelist for the Arts Council.
And Jose.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jose Jalotz, and I have a master's in architectural design from Tulane University in New Orleans, where I lived for many years, and I also practice as an architect in New York City. For the last 30 years, I've been here in Tampa, working as an arts administrator, curator, or a member of an educational staff at various museums or galleries in either Tampa or Pinellas. I currently am on staff at the Henry B. Plant Museum, and I also sit on the Bar Latino Review Commission for the City of Tampa, as well as the Public Art Committee. And this is the first time I've been a reviewer for this panel. Thank you.
And Samson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samson. I was born in Taiwan. I grew up in New York City. I've been painting and drawing all my life. It wasn't until 5 years ago when I moved down here to Tampa. I've been doing painting and drawing for the full-time for the last 5 years. I'm very happy to say that all my full-time dedicated work has allowed me to be last year's grant recipient. So I'm very honored to be serving on the panel. I also got invited to be a participant for the Skyway 2020, but now it's going to be Skyway 2021 because of COVID. Thank you.
Great. And next, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Sexton Larson, and I am a past multiple grant winner with the Arts Council and State of Florida Fellowship recipient, which I'm very grateful for. I graduated from University of South Florida. I have degrees in mass communications and fine art painting. I have worked in museums for 20 years and recently stopped that to do my art full-time, which is working with 19th century photographic processes. And with that, my work is currently touring Europe with Polaroid.
Great. And David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Valdez, born and raised in Tampa, Florida. My undergrad is from USF and my MFA is from Florida State. I have a heavy background in performing arts management and arts administration. I come from the theater world, and I'm an administrator at Hillsborough County Public Schools. I serve on the board of directors at Metro Inclusive Health and was recently appointed to the Public Art Committee through Hillsborough County.
And Kim has joined us, has overcome her technical difficulties. So Kim, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I was like on the other Zoom video that for the participants to listen to. So sorry I'm late. Kimberly Bryant from St. Pete. I went to college at Flagler, studied graphic design and fine art, came back here, have been working in Tampa Bay, various advertising agencies for about 20 years. And about 4 years ago, I started teaching at USF St. Pete, a class called the Business of Graphic Design, which is a great opportunity to give students an idea of what it's like to expect, what to expect working in an ad agency.
So thank you all. As you can see, we have a very accomplished group of panelists, but we also have a member of our staff that will be helping us today. So Eileen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Eileen Blake. I am the Communications and Strategic Initiatives Coordinator for the Arts Council, and I'll be assisting today with the scores and any changes that we make along the way.
Great. So now I'm going to do what we call reading of the record. And this is just kind of the ground rules for the day and how the meeting's going to proceed. So we will review the applications starting today in alphabetical order. All applications are eligible to receive up to 100 points, but must receive at least 80 points to be considered for funding. However, a score of 80 does not guarantee funding. Panelists who have noted a conflict of interest with an applicant will be identified and will not participate in the discussion of that applicant. Although each panelist has reviewed and scored every application, a first reader has been assigned randomly to each application. The first reader completes a more thorough review of each application and will begin the discussion of that application. All panelists will then be able to add any comments. Panelists have an opportunity following the discussion of each applicant to make changes to their score sheet. At the conclusion of the discussion, panelists will be asked to announce their total score, beginning with the first reader. If there is a change in the original score, panelists are asked to announce that their score has changed and identify in what category. Once this process is completed, the scores are final. The panel's recommendation for funding based on the scoring will be taken to the Arts Council Board of Directors for approval. Grant awards are for full funding of the amount requested in compliance with allowed expenses, beginning from the top scoring grant until funding is depleted. Grant agreements are scheduled to go out in December of 2020. Funded projects must take place between January 1st, 2021 and August 31st, 2021. And very importantly, funding for the Professional Development for Artists grant is provided by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. And we are very, very grateful for their support. So without any further ado, let's begin with our first applicant, Elise Trent, and Caitlin is the first reader.
Great, we'll go ahead and get started with Trent Elise. To give an overview, Trent Elise is an emerging artist of 4 or so years who is a maker while is also taught in the public school system. She plans on using this grant for both permanent equipment, silversmithing torch kit, and silversmithing lessons with local artists and jeweler Dan Balk. Her career goals are to find more local and national exhibition opportunities, increasing the numbers of sales and followers, improve the quality of her jewelry works, and help add curriculum to high school level classes. Now, I'm not sure if that means teaching silversmith to high school students or whatnot, but I admire that. When looking at the need and impact, there's only so much you can do with copper, which is what I think she's been doing right now, mostly copper-based works. Probably cold connections is what I'm assuming with rivets. and then electroplating. It's hard to tell the artist's experience with metals. It looks like, I don't know if this was learned in her BA or if this was self-taught, which is why having that hands-on experience with a master at this, silversmithing is pretty crucial to make sure gems are properly secured and won't fall out on the buyer. Also, there kind of is a stigma on copper jewelry. I think many people don't wear it because it kind of turns your skin green, or whether the metal itself doesn't seem as precious as silver. So having that opportunity to expand to other metals will allow her to reach that broader audience as stated in her career goals. Looking at her commitment to her career, it's hard to judge a metalsmith's resume in the same way as other artists, perhaps, who regularly have exhibition opportunities, and that there's still a kind of the discrepancy between art and craft and, kind of what is shown where. Regardless, she's found a niche of what galleries or exhibition spaces would be most suitable for her work, as evidenced in her resume. Perhaps she could keep researching even more so those national galleries in the same vein there for her work. Moving on to artistic excellence, as a metalsmith myself, I can see the attention to detail in her work for sure. The craftsmanship of the coffer, from the construction to the surface finishing techniques. As far as originality and creativity, I personally find them in the realm of kitsch, which I don't think is too much of a bad thing. This could be due to Trent being an emerging artist and still kind of finding her personal voice with this medium. But she did briefly mention something about these works funding larger scale sculpture projects, which I would be particularly interested in. The main issue I had with her application were the images. Some images were a little bit smaller DPI, so they were a little bit grainy, making it hard to see all the details in her work. Others had perhaps too many pieces in them. As a jeweler, I know it's always good to have like these kind of what are considered lifestyle images, in different kind of backgrounds where they're being worn, or kind of this more natural element. But I think it might be good for her to also have, her works on a solid white or black background, so you can really see the work a little bit better. While most images were rooted in nature, the Cheez-Its and pretzel, I don't know if you guys recall, like many of them kind of were more natural element pieces, maybe even including like, I think a snake heart in one of them. The Cheez-Its and pretzel piece didn't really make sense with the theme overall. So that's what I have.
Anybody else have a comment? David.
This is David. I also, and Caitlin's overview was really thorough. I also wanted to point out, I'm always coming from a marketing and communications standpoint, and I really appreciated her Etsy shop. Trent has an Etsy shop that she's, or they have been able to sell many, many pieces over a few short years. And so I think that she represents Tampa Bay and Hillsborough County in a great way in trying to use this professional development money to even further her skills and bring that sort of homegrown grassroots sort of understanding and salesmanship to Hillsborough County. So I really appreciated that as well.
Any other comments? If not, then I think we are ready to score, and we will start with our first reader, Caitlin.
I have 82.
Jay?
I'd like to change my score. Caitlin brought up a lot of details about her application that, as a non-jewelry person, was very appreciative of that. I would say I originally had 99, but I'd like to change it to 95 in artistic excellence.
Okay. Eileen, have you noted
You're
that?
taking 4 points out of artistic excellence? Okay.
Yes.
So just 1 second. Okay.
So Kim.
I have a quick question before I give my answer. Can you no longer access online the score sheet? No.
Now,
Okay.
We sent you the score sheet.
You did? I feel like I didn't get any of this info, which is why I was not where I was supposed to be. Well, for her, I have my notes right here. I loved her. I loved her. So according to my notes, if I didn't change them by the time I inserted them on the computer, I gave her 100.
You did.
Okay. And I'll look for that email in the meantime so I can access that. Thank you.
Jose?
I scored her a 92.
Sampson?
I thought she's an excellent jeweler, and I scored her a 94.
And Rebecca?
I scored her a 75.
And David?
My score was 95.
Okay. And Eileen, do you have an average score for us?
Yes, the average score is a 90.
Perfect. Okay, our next applicant is Lori Ballard, and Jade is our first reader.
Okay. So I thought Lori had an extensive and impressive portfolio that covered a broad range of subjects. She worked with a diverse range of subjects and clients throughout her career, and I think that's something to be especially proud of as a freelance artist. Her resume was a bit lacking in terms of exhibition history. I think there was one point in there where she said, I've done hundreds of shows between this period, but I do understand that she's had a long career behind her. I would have just liked to see more of how and where she displayed her work. But I think the portfolio speaks for itself, so I don't want to focus on the resume as much. I thought the quality of the images was really beautiful, and I think that a new camera would allow her to keep growing and expanding her client range and portfolio as a freelance photographer and a new reliable piece of equipment, or with a new reliable piece of equipment, because this is her primary source of income as a freelancer. I think it would be necessary. And because of the out-of-pocket cost is so high, I think the grant would help sort of subsidize some of that. In terms of career goals, what she explained was kind of like broad or fuzzy for me. I had kind of like a disconnect between the website portfolio and her career goals. So I would, if she's here or listening or in general, I would consider or reconsider her mission as a photographer / artist and what she wants to achieve with the images, or even consider narrowing her portfolio to align with her goals or her goals as an artist more. On a separate note, I think the Florida pictures could be especially valuable for local magazines and newspapers, if that's something that she's interested in. And for the future, as someone who works in libraries, maybe consider a Florida archive or a library to preserve your image collections of Florida culture at this moment in time.
Very good. Anyone else?
Yes, can I go ahead? Also, going back to the resume, I definitely agreed about just writing 100 group shows since 1997. If there were some that she could remember, I know that's a little bit hard at this point. I also wish there were more dates added for the resume listings. I think overall the resume could have probably been better organized, and there were spelling errors. I know Phoenix was spelled wrong, and so was November. And to me, like, you know, double checking things doesn't take too long, especially for a shorter resume. I think that could help out a little bit more.
Anything else that we haven't covered?
Can I add a little piece to it?
Absolutely.
She went into detail about how it was important because of the click numbers on her current camera, and that she'd been told that she'd reached a certain maximum with click numbers. I don't want people to automatically panic and think that, you know, once they reach so many clicks, their cameras are no good, because that's primarily used when you're buying a used camera. If you relate it to kind of a car, you don't stop driving the car just because it hits a certain mileage. But with that, I can totally see why she's wanting the new camera, because it's the primary piece of equipment for her career and for what she does. I agree with the others that I'd like to have seen her resume cleaned up a little bit better on exhibitions. And I did find some spelling stuff. And there was also a date error, I believe, because she had that the end date would be August 2020. And I think she meant August 2021. But other than that, I think wonderful images.
Yeah,
Great.
I'd just like
Go
to
ahead.
chime in. I agree with what's been said. It's an artist who's clearly her past work has been very accomplished, and it really seems like she's wanting to re-engage with her fine art photography, and the piece of equipment that she's asking for seems to be not only essential, but also might be inspirational for her. Thank
I
you.
think that's a real good way of phrasing it, Jose, re-engage with the art side of it. Because she has a very successful commercial career also, so balancing the two.
Any other thoughts? Well, then I think we're ready to score. So we will start with Jade,
88.
then Kim,
69.
Jose,
92.
Sampson,
So in light of what other people have highlighted, I originally scored 100 because I thought the applicant was very thorough. Because of the minor errors, I'll knock it down to 95.
and which category are you changing?
The part with, let me see, clarity and organization.
Okay, did you get that, Eileen?
Well, so Jose, this is, I'm showing on this one that you scored 92.
Yes, is that correct? Is that what I said?
No, I thought you just said 100. I'm sorry. Am
No,
I?
that was me.
That's
Okay,
Sampson.
I'm
was
sorry.
it.
My
Yes.
mistake. I wasn't sure who was
My
talking
original
there for a
score
second
was
while I was looking at
100.
the sheet.
Yeah, my original
Okay.
score was 100 because I thought there was a definite need. She's a great photographer. Her portfolio shows that she's been photographing community neighbors and stuff like that, especially during COVID. I thought that was a very interesting. But the other panelist has raised some issues regarding, spelling errors or resume. So I'm giving her a final score of 95.
Okay, I've got it noted. Thank you.
Yeah.
And next, Rebecca
81.
and David.
I would like to take 4 points off of clarity and organization for a new total of 85.
Got that, Eileen?
Yep, I've got that noted.
Okay, if you will give us an average when you have it ready.
It's 84.
Very good. Thank you. Our next applicant is Alicia Campos, and Kim Bryant is the first reader.
All right, so I had Alicia Campos. Her need was that she's looking for a computer and a printer that will allow her to show a new narrative in art, so she can show in different galleries around the country. She currently does individual figures, and she would like to collaborate and do more figures at one time. So having this capability would certainly allow her to explore this new direction. And she also is really adamant about helping children. She volunteers with children who have suffered from sexual abuse and human trafficking. Her commitment, she wants to explore new techniques and technology and get more involved in on the computer and not less, I should say, but incorporate her painting, her fine art, and to collaborate with the digital art, moving more in that direction so that she can have more complex compositions. Her artistic excellence, I thought her portraits were absolutely beautiful. It was a great use of color, and I thought that her color schemes were very unique. And then for clarity, I thought that her application was very clear and straightforward.
Other thoughts?
I thought I like that she had a specific project that she was working towards. Like she already has everything like clearly mapped out of like even down to the medium and like what she plans to do with like a new collection. I think also the idea behind it is really powerful, and that is like a growing problem in our country that I think would be interesting to see addressed through her artwork.
I agree. I agree. I
Oh,
think her passion and her confidence in presenting her work came across very, very strong. And it really seemed like she wanted to take her work in a new direction, which requires the new equipment that she's requesting. One thing I noted is that I would like to see her work towards maybe getting a broader, a wider and broader reach for her artwork. It seems like, there's probably other opportunities for her once she has a more established body of work to reach out and show her work more in different public realms.
On to what Jose said, I think the different venues might be helpful because I felt like perhaps her resume wasn't as like beefy as other resumes considering the amount of years she's been as an artist.
any other thoughts? Then I think we're ready to score, and we will start with Kim.
89.
Jose,
92, again.
Samson,
88.
Rebecca,
73.
and David.
93.
Excuse me,
I didn't say my score.
you keep skipping me.
And me.
So, did we miss somebody's score?
You missed mine.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry. Jade, I apologize.
And Caitlin, mine was 92.
And Caitlin.
I had it 83 and I'd like to change it to 85.
What category are you changing, Caitlin?
2 points for artistic excellence, please.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, that brings the total to an 87.
Okay. Our next applicant is Will Douglas, and our first reader is Sam. You're muted, Sam.
Sorry.
There we go.
All right, let me pull up my notes. Sorry. Oh, okay. So Will has had a long career. He's been, based on his resume, he's shown in the Tampa Museum of Art. He's had many, many shows based on he's a multimedia artist, and based on his images, I thought his work was very thoughtful, insightful, and very cutting edge. He's been very active here in the community here in Tampa. He's asking for an equipment, which he said will help him out advance his career, which I thought matches the need. So I gave him an overall score of 98.
Okay, other thoughts?
One little thing that stood out to me about Will was his resourcefulness when he noted that it was challenging. He could foresee a problem and figuring out a solution when he talks about how he learned to make his own frames. That stood out to me.
It's interesting that you mention his frames. I know Will's work, and it is very sophisticated, and he's had he's taken advantage of many opportunities to display his work, not just locally, but also nationally. He has helped other artists in the area in multiple ways. He's very community focused. He and his partner have a really excellent nonprofit garage gallery in Seminole Heights that has given other artists opportunities. And I mentioned this in the way of part of his application request is for equipment to help him with his framing. he's involved in so many things. He stresses that the additional equipment is going to improve his efficiency. And I can really see that. His frames are almost as well known locally as his own artwork. He's is an excellent framer and has assisted a lot of other artists in the area with framing, which if you were involved with, well, if you've purchased art and never have had to have something framed, you know how expensive it is. But for artists in particular who want to put their best foot forward, it's really wonderful to have someone as talented and as community oriented as Will is in that regard. So that's kind of just an aside, but I find his work very strong and his commitment and ethics really strong as well.
Anyone else? Okay, then I think we are ready to score. And I know you gave us your score, Sam, but just for purposes of going through the scores, we're going to start with you for your score again.
Yes, I gave Will a 98. Strong candidate.
And Rebecca?
I gave him a 93.
David?
I gave him a 93 also.
Caitlin?
I'm going to change it from a 94 to a 96.
What category, Caitlin?
1 point for need and impact and 1 point for artistic excellence, please.
Jade?
99.
Kimberly?
92.
So,
You haven't asked for my score.
oh, I'm sorry, Jose.
Right, I gave him 100.
Did I get everybody?
Jose, I'm seeing that you gave him 99 on here. Should I correct this?
Oh, I apologize. You're right. It is a 99.
Okay. I think that's everyone correct, Martine?
Yes.
Okay, so we are at a 95 total score here.
Very good. Our next applicant is Tyler Glenn, and Rebecca is the first reader.
And I have to apologize up front that I had a computer dump last night and lost a lot of my notes. So I'm kind of sitting where Kim is, going off what I had handwritten early on, but I think we're okay. Tyler Glenn is requesting $1,900, and the funds are to purchase technical equipment to be used for her artistic practice. The equipment she's requesting includes video mapping software, virtual reality headset, and a home theater projection. Owning the equipment will allow her to focus on art making and research without worrying about the technical limitations, which I can definitely see her need for, and I can imagine how frustrating it is to try and locate this equipment should you have an exhibition or something coming up, plus the expense of renting equipment. Her goal as an artist is to express this and related ideas in an interesting and engaging format so that an audience would be able to expand their perception of consciousness. In turn, she would facilitate dialogue between the status quo, the perception of audience members, and the narrative the art piece is working to convey. I wish she would work a little bit more on her objective and what she's trying to project with her work. Because I went also to her website to read to see if I could see a little bit more, because it always is kind of a red flag to me when an artist says, I'm leaving it to the audience and what they bring to it or what they project into my work. I think if you're going to set those parameters, you need to say a little bit more about how you got from point A to point B. She definitely has a career mapped out in the next couple of months. She has several pieces to be included in gallery and museum shows in New York and South Korea. And working on these shows has made her more aware of the inaccessibility of her technical equipment and devices that she needs for these exhibitions. Again, she's been borrowing equipment. Her examples, I was really excited reading her application because I really was interested in the marriage between sculpture and the interactive and the projection, but her examples, I don't think project that to the best of their ability. She has one that shows one projection, which is kind of very hard to relate to. And then the rest are showing her sculptural forms, which I know are key to what she does, but as a slide or as an image themselves, I don't think they're her strongest image. And likewise, I couldn't find a whole lot more on her website. But I am very interested in what she's doing. I think she's very dedicated to her career. She definitely has some wonderful ideas going. So I did give her a 91.
Other thoughts?
I would agree. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. I'll go after you.
Oh, I was just going to agree that I was really intrigued by the work and I wanted to know more, but there was a little bit of a disconnect between the information that was written and the examples of work that were shown. But again, as Becky said, there was an active interest in my part, an active engagement just from the proposal. And her work in new media did seem to require the very, very specific kind of equipment that she's asking to be funded for. So I scored her pretty high.
And just to piggyback off of that, I definitely agree that some sections could use a little bit more clarity on what's going on. It was a hard time to see how the technology would be used in those scenarios based off of the images just in this, because I feel like once you start researching them more and more, it's like how much of that is the application anymore. So like I try to stick true to like what images did they provide here, right, in this space of the application. I know for image 7, which was a video, it wouldn't open, so I opened it through YouTube, and it ended up being a still image anyways. It looked like it should have been a video, and it felt like, you know, if this is supposed to be technology and this is what she's using, I couldn't tell if it was downloaded improperly or if it was incomplete or what was going on, but it felt like those things could kind of, you know, should be resolved ahead of time, because that ends up being like one image that we don't get to review of their work. So I don't know, I feel like that was a little let down, because I agree it was exciting, but it didn't match up with kind of what the images were there.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say that to me, it appears that she's an artist that's just starting out her career. She definitely knows the direction, at least for now, where she wants to go and focus. And I thought that her need, like her request for the equipment, was definitely, applicable to at least the up and coming shows that she's going to have internationally.
Anyone else? Okay, then I think we're ready to score. So we'll start with Rebecca.
91.
David?
I'd like to take 2 points away from clarity and organization for a total of 90.
You get that, Eileen?
Yep, I have that noted. Thank you.
Caitlin?
89.
Jade?
90.
Kimberly?
78.
Jose?
95.
Samson?
91.
Okay, that brings the average to an 89.
Thank you. Our next applicant is Julie Hora, and David is our first reader.
Great. So Mrs. Hora is requesting $1,500 in order to expand her offerings through media using an iPad Pro specifically. She's a 2D and 3D artist, and she has owned and operated her studio since 2018, so only a couple years. The primary use of the technology purchased by these funds will allow the applicant to create new digital works in addition to digitizing current paintings and drawings into prints for resale. The iPad Pro would give Mrs. Hora the opportunity to learn a new medium as far as technology goes and develop her personal knowledge in expanding her small business offerings. I visited her website and it's well made. She has an impressive range of work. Her viewpoint seems to be clear and has an impressive range within her body of work. In addition to her work samples submitted for this application, her work feels inspired. This is coming from a performing artist, right? But it feels inspired to me, and I'm personally a fan of her aesthetic. Her application demonstrates strong support for all 4 categories in reference to the funds requested, in my opinion. There were infrequent use of contractions in her application, which I noted in my scoring, versus true professional writing. And I scored her a 95.
Other thoughts?
In one area of the application, or when I went to her website, it said she lived in St. Pete Beach, but I'm assuming you all had checked that and she maybe has a dual residency living in Tampa too.
We do have a residency requirement, and that staff review proved that she was a resident. So that, I'm not sure why that, but anyway, thank you for bringing that up.
When I went to her website. My other concern was the memory capabilities of doing what she wants to do on an iPad, from somebody that's doing that kind of stuff now and using a laptop. But I'm sure she's thought of that, I'm assuming, and has a workaround. But
Other thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go
Three
ahead.
people trying to talk at once.
She goes first this time, Jose. You went first last time.
All right. I know one of the premises of needing this iPad was that the artist said that she can't make reproductions of her paintings. And I felt like that's kind of a cop-out because you can make giclées and things and reproductions of original paintings. So that kind of made it so the need wasn't as pressing as perhaps other applicants. Another thing I saw was that I felt like the work was only satisfactory, but could use a little bit more sophistication, in my opinion.
That's where I was going to go too. I think the artist would benefit from really spending some time and maybe even getting, some advice from other artists in regards to putting together her personal mission statement and to state her goals. I think they could have been more sophisticated. And then also, I think perhaps when she has a new body of work, she really would benefit from expanding where she shows. Those are my basic 2 points.
Yeah, I wanted to go off that as well. Like, I was thinking sort of the same thing. It seems like the primary goal is to like reprint and sell, rather than develop the quality and meaning of work, which I think should be her primary focus at this stage in her career. So I feel like the iPad is not absolutely necessary at this stage in her career.
I also thought there was a disconnect between her request for an iPad to like her work. I think Rebecca said that the iPad is not necessarily the best way to get large files, digital images, to get high quality prints. So I thought the need part was weak, and also I thought that her body of work needs to be sort of improved or diversified.
Anybody else? And I think we are ready to score, and we'll start with David.
You've given me a lot to think about, guys, but I'm going to go with my original score of 95.
And Caitlin?
After listening to everyone's discussion, I'm going to remove 4 points from the need and impact. So my new score from 77 will be 73 now.
Jade?
I'd like to take 3 points off need and impact for a total score of 75.
And you got that, Eileen?
Yes.
Okay. Kim?
72.
Jose?
87.
Samson?
83.
And Rebecca?
I'm going to continue my trend of being the one thrown out at 67.
That makes the final score a 78.
Okay, and our next applicant is Rebecca Kruger, and Caitlin is our first reader.
All right, so starting again, Rebecca Kruger is an emerging painter asking 1,969 to go towards an educational class with Robert Burridge for a 5-day contemporary figure painting class in California. When reviewing the needed impact, I agree with the artist that there is no substitution for this in-person workshops, especially when it comes down to fine-tuning techniques and color palettes. Like, I don't know how any art class is getting along doing Zoom art classes nowadays, just because it's no substitution of being in person. She hasn't had any formal art training, but has a record of taking workshops with various artists, both locally and in North Carolina. As a single mother of 3, one of whom is special needs, I can see the struggle of being able to find a reasonable opportunity to learn new techniques that wouldn't really take her away from her family for an extended period of time. When we look at the artist's commitment to her art career, it mostly highlights workshops. As an emerging artist, she doesn't really have a record of solo shows, group shows, publication, etc. But she has been working in the art industry as a framer, it seems. This does make me question how the artist will manage to run an open studio space. I think that was one of her goal, like kind of long-term goal, unless it's more of that's, I don't know if she'd put her personal work on hold or what she's most interested in pursuing, or kind of how this workshop plays into her goals. Is it going to be mostly to do this open studio space, or is this for her personal work and to grow? So I'm not really quite sure there. There's a little bit of uncertainty. Moving on to artistic excellence, the collection as a whole reads as an emerging artist who's still trying to develop their own personal voice by experimenting with a bunch of different techniques and styles, from figurative to abstract to landscape, and kind of seeing what sticks. Some palette choices and compositions are definitely better than others, but despite that, I guess, it is original to the artist. When we move on to clarity and organization of her grant, I felt as though some sentences were hard to read, as in the wording was perhaps sometimes convoluted, but I was still able to understand kind of the gist of what she was trying to convey. I also noted some editing errors. It's with an apostrophe, but the budget was well researched to make the most of that $2,000.
Any other thoughts?
I did feel that the work here certainly represents an emerging artist who probably could benefit a lot from the active experience of the kind of seminar or workshop that she's looking for. She also stresses that she's looking for mentor figures, and that kind of one-on-one would probably be best suited. So, but I do agree. I think I was less than taken by perhaps her ability or her opportunity to have displayed her work publicly in meaningful ways. But so I looked at this one from the filter of a truly emerging artist that's showing a lot of heart and a lot of passion, and is trying to figure out what role art can play in the work of her own life and her family life and her community.
Anyone else?
I agree with Caitlin in the clarity aspect of the application and some of the things she wrote. I had to kind of really struggle through and read it several times to make sure I was tracking with what she was trying to say. But then when I went to her website, her objective statement there is spot on. So she might want to think about, getting a set of those statements and really thinking how she's using them and where she's using them at, because it was much clearer on her website.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to piggyback on what Jose said, that this artist has lots of heart. She really wants to do a lot for the community, especially for children. However, she needs to craft her message. I did note that she's taken a lot of workshop, but on her resume, it doesn't show that she's shown or done anything to advance her goal. So I thought that she needs to really hone in on what she really wants to do.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we're ready to score. We will start with Caitlin.
I have her score as a 76.
Jade.
I want to take a few points or 3 points off clarity and organization for a total score of 88.
Did you get that, Eileen?
Yes.
Kimberly.
87.
Jose,
92.
Sampson,
I gave her a 58.
I'm sorry, just a second. Jose, I'm seeing that you have an 89 on here. Is that different from your score sheet?
No, that is correct. I'm sorry. The
Okay,
correct is 89. I
okay,
misread
just
what I'm
wanted to be
looking at.
sure.
okay, and back to Sam
I gave her a 58.
and Rebecca
71.
and David.
I'd like to take 3 points from clarity and organization, and I'd like to take 2 points from artistic excellence for a total of 90.
That brings the score to a 79.
Okay, our next applicant is Anthony John Letourneau. And our first reader is Jade.
Okay, so he was requesting the funds to build something that I've never seen. They were sort of like mobile art structures, like mobile public art structures. They're like fabricated golf carts with different materials. His work was sort of like all over the place in terms of like the samples that were seen by the panelists. But I think the idea and the desire is there to develop the projects that he's asking for, but I'm kind of lost on what the goal is once they're built. I think he should have a mission or like some specific plan with the golf carts or some sort of project that he's aiming to achieve with the mobile art pieces if he were to receive the funding. The art was really mixed, as I said earlier, in terms of style from the samples that we saw, but I don't see anything similar to the type of work he was looking to make or get funded. Maybe best not to include every single thing you've made, but keep a specially curated selection of the most relevant and best quality works that you've done. Bikini laser tag was very interesting. I scored him the highest in commitment to career because I see the passion in wanting to pursue the projects, but to me, I'd like to see an end goal on the why behind the ideas or how it could connect to the community as a whole more specifically.
Other thoughts?
I thought there were several budget problems in there. I thought some different pricings were hidden in different areas. So I spent a lot of time trying to work out his budget. I think he could definitely benefit from learning more about the grants and how they're put together, maybe a workshop on the grant writing and, what panelists review what they look for, that kind of thing.
I totally agree with Rebecca. I just thought that this person knows what he wants and is very creative. But the way he assembled the application was very disjointed, very messy. In fact, I don't know if you guys realize he didn't really provide a CV, a resume. So I just couldn't figure out, what his track record was or what he has shown.
And to Sam's point also, I don't know if I missed the website or tried to find some sort of storytelling element to exactly what he was doing to the community. While it's very unique and I think interesting, I couldn't find a larger story about it as far as something that he has produced. So that was a little disappointing to me.
Just to keep going off of everyone else, I think the artist certainly has a lot of talent. I can appreciate dabbling in different mediums just because I do too. And like you can see he has proficiency in what he does do, from patches to this and that. It would have been nice to see what he's been doing a little bit more with the technology side. I think there were some images of that, but at least looking for some kind of consistent train of thought across the board. With regard to the resumes, everyone else said, I didn't know whether to be like impressed or horrified. Just seeing like images in a resume, I was like, wow, like I've never seen this before. So I think a little bit of professional kind of kind of putting your best foot forward, I suppose. It seemed like this was like done within the last couple hours of, perhaps needing to send this in. It just seemed a little not thought out. When looking at some of the images, I know there was a blurry image of the wooden castle that was burnt. Photo, having this like be clear, better quality images might be better. Because overall, I think this is a really cool idea that most people could really get on board with. But I think having some SketchUps of what this is going to look like, because in our own heads, yeah, we can see what has been done with Burning Man, but like, what is this artist particularly going to do with this? And then, as Jade says, like, well, then what's the end goal? Is this a community project? Is this for his personal projects? Like, there's a lot of, I have a lot of more questions after reading this application than answers.
I go along with Caitlin 100%, but I also put a note there that maybe if you're going to request something like this and you don't have any images, you need to at least build a small maquette of what your vision is to help us review it a little bit more.
Like a prototype or something.
Exactly.
Anybody else? Okay, I think we're ready to score, and we'll start with Jade.
I want to take 5 points off clarity and organization and 3 points off need and impact. I'm bad with math, but I think that's 64 for a total score of 64.
Give Eileen a second to.
Let me just check it. I can have Excel confirm that for us, just so that we definitely are not mistaken. Yeah, it's a 64. You were correct.
Okay.
Kim?
34.
Jose?
80.
Samson?
I gave it a 36.
Rebecca?
35.
And David?
I'd like to take off 5 points from clarity and organization and 4 points from artistic excellence. That's a total of 80.
And you miss me.
I hadn't gotten to you yet.
Oh, okay.
You're after David, so I'm at you now. I was giving Eileen a second to make those changes before I called on you. Are we good, Eileen?
Yes, we're okay.
Okay. Now it's your turn. Caitlin.
I had 69, but I would like to take 4 points off of need and impact. So that'll be bumped down to 65.
Just 1 second. Okay, I've noted that. Is that everyone?
That should be everyone, correct?
Okay. That comes out to a total score of a 56.
Okay. Our next applicant is Carrie Olsowich, and Jose is our first reader.
I found her application to be a delight to read, probably a benefit from being a writer. She was one of the only ones who submitted under the literary category, and she states that she's been working at this for over 7 years, but her resume and CV seems like she's been writing for most of her life, I would imagine. She's from the Gibsonton area, which, just as an aside, seems like it's an area that's sort of underrepresented in terms of where traditionally the county funding goes, I would imagine. She had very clearly stated goals, which I appreciated. She wants in the next year to complete 2 books and to prepare the volumes for publication. I also really enjoyed like the thesis of her statement as an artist, which was not only to write more, but to write better. She's looking for a new computer and some related peripherals. And she states she has a very outdated computer, and it's been challenging for her because part of what she's been doing more recently is taking online courses and taking online opportunities to do research and find new venues for her work and new publications for her work. So I could really see this was a case where, for me, the need really met the desire very clearly. She's a published author in terms of short stories and fiction and essays and poems in various literary quarterly journals and other kinds of reviews. She states that she has some upcoming submission opportunities in 2021 and also a possibility of attending or participating in an opportunity in Spain. So all that to me led back to her need to truly upgrade her technological capabilities with a computer made in this century. There was one slight, not criticism, but just observation. Most of where she has been published has not been locally, and there are some really wonderful opportunities, not only in Hillsborough, but also in Pinellas, for local writers to showcase their work. And I would encourage her, and I would hope she would be encouraged to explore those kinds of opportunities to share her work, again, more locally. That's been a theme of mine all day today, as you've heard me say.
Other thoughts? Oh, anybody else? Okay, we can go ahead and score. So Jose, we will start with you.
I gave her a 94.
Samson,
I gave her a 96.
Rebecca,
92.
David,
92.
Caitlin,
91.
Jade,
94.
and Kimberly.
88.
That makes the final score a 92.
Our next applicant is Libby Ponce, and Jose has declared a conflict of interest with this application, so he will refrain from participating in this discussion. Our first reader for Libby is Kim Bryant.
For Libby under need. So after watching the videos that she sent, that she linked to her application, I could see that a better quality camera would definitely enhance her art. She has an upcoming trip to Ecuador, which is a great opportunity for her to break in this new camera and then get some good footage. Commitment. She's been doing this for a very long time but she's been doing art for a very long time and seems very committed. She has very big goals, and especially very big goals in regards to her education, her plans for education, and where she plans to study and the degree she plans to get. She also helps to inspire others and mentor children, which is always a wonderful thing. She did note that she had recently switched. She was more into sculpture and was moving more into a digital media capacity. As far as her artistic excellence, I was hesitant because of this switching mediums and most of her experiences in sculpture. And as you guys saw on her site, there was a lot of sculpture that she referenced. Her website really doesn't showcase her video capabilities. And when I first was going through the videos that she tied to her application, I was having trouble figuring out what was going on in the videos. It was kind of confusing, not knowing what the subject matter was. I think an explanation would have helped. For example, on notes from my phone, I appreciated it more when she made like the solitaire reference. I could understand where she was coming from. And it was not until the last video, the Christianity was the tool of the colonizers, that I really began to understand and really appreciate her work and could see how she could bring her digital media and her sculpture together, and how she had the videos reflecting on the materials in the center of the room. As far as her goals, I thought they were very clear. The only thing that I found confusing was that the sculpture to digital transition because of space and monetary issues, but I feel like she'll run into issues with the digital media aspect of it just as the same, and I hope that she doesn't completely give up on sculpture. And she's very talented, and I just hope that she keeps her options open.
Others? Then I guess we're ready to score. So Kim, let's start with you.
8.
Samson,
Gave her a 98.
Rebecca,
93.
David,
I was truly impressed with this applicant, and 94.
Caitlin,
96.
Jade,
93.
That gives the applicant an overall score of 93.
thank you. Our next applicant is Liz Prisley, and Sam is our first reader.
Yeah, so this applicant is also a literary artist. She is a writer, performance poet, an educator that's based out of Tampa. She has a great website, it's very clear. And she's also, I think, a Fulbright scholar in Germany in 2000, I think in the 2008, 2008. She was very clear about what her needs are. And I thought her application was very easy to read. I didn't find any major issues. The one small issue was the work samples. I noted in my comments that only one in the list of the 5 work sample is within the last 2 years. So that was something that I noticed, but everything else I thought it was pretty clear to me.
Others?
I would, just to piggyback on that point, I think the artist was clear that there had been a lapse in her, a recent lapse in her ability to spend time with her art, and that part of what the equipment is for is to bring her additional abilities to record and digitize and upload her work. So I read that with optimism, thinking that this would be a terrific opportunity to, again, help an artist re-engage themselves with a different path for their work. And certainly as a performing artist and a spoken word artist, I would imagine under these current circumstances where there's perhaps fewer opportunities to perform in public, that this kind of equipment would be essential for her to be able to make that leap forward.
One thing that stood out to me too was like the diversity and the locations that she was performing. I noticed that she went to juvenile justice centers, which was something I can appreciate because generally art is for the public, but that's a population that might not always be out in the public necessarily. So I can appreciate that she was going to disadvantaged populations and serving them and giving them an opportunity and exposing them to new ideas and new art forms that they might not have otherwise been exposed to.
David, I saw you trying to comment a couple of times.
It took the words right out of my mouth. Jade said it probably better than I could have. I'm so impressed with the ties to the community and the youth arts collective that she's a part of. So I just wanted to touch on that, how impressive that is, and important that the money that goes into this professional development also kind of ties into community engagement.
Anyone else?
I'll say that for someone who, I'm into the visual arts world, so I don't know much about like the performance aspects of things, but like I'm not too into performances per se, but I'll say I really found her voice extremely engaging. The content, the vocal flow, the performative aura, all that was captured so seamlessly in the videos. I can only imagine what she can do in person and what she's capable of doing. And though there was a lapse in her practice, she has what it takes now. And I can't wait to see, if she does get this grant, what she will do with it. And I think that's what's most exciting about this artist.
Anyone else? Then I think we're ready to score, and we will start with Sampson.
I gave her an 85.
Rebecca,
96.
David,
93.
Caitlin,
95.
Jade,
95.
One minute. Caitlin, I think I'm seeing that you're a 94 on my side. Is that correct, or do I need to alter this?
It might have been, I didn't know if I did my math wrong, but if we can bump it up to 95, that would be great.
Okay. Any particular area?
We'll do artistic excellent, please.
Okay, just 1 second here.
Eileen has a very tough job, by the way,
Yeah.
keeping track of all of this.
And she's
Okay.
doing a great job.
Thank you. I have Caitlin. I can't remember who we were on next.
Jade,
Okay, thank you.
95.
Kimberly,
100.
Jose.
94.
I think that should be everyone, Eileen.
That brings the total to a 94.
Okay. Our next applicant is Beth Smedley, and David is our first reader.
Great. Ms. Smedley is a 2D and 3D artist who's been primarily focused on her art since approximately 2016. She's also been in juried competition in the Tampa Bay area since 2017. She's requesting $2,000 to purchase a MacBook Pro. It's a cost of $2,300 that she will cover the balance. She'll use this money to expand her knowledge of works through mostly research-based goals. Further, Ms. Smedley plans to use the laptop in a variety of ways, including workshop and tutorial opportunities, on-location digital studio, and general office needs. While increasing her knowledge of contemporary works and trends, her ultimate goal is to express her creative vision to a wider audience. In addition to the resources she listed on her application as potential uses, I would like for her to consider creating a website to host her body of work to accompany her Instagram account. She only has an Instagram account currently. She may be able to use this laptop to explore a medium of digital 2D art. With focus, the equipment will certainly excel her work into space of a wider reach locally and nationally. Her submitted work samples showed understanding of the craft and skill. My hope is that the equipment will not be a substitute for her tangible work in narrative number 3. To be clear, in narrative number 2, Ms. Smedley listed both a laptop and iPad as equipment, but I'm certain that she only meant laptop. I don't know if anyone else caught that or if maybe I was reading it incorrectly. And while the majority of her application was sufficient, there were examples of speaking text instead of professional writing.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, and looking at the need, it almost seemed a little bit too universal, perhaps not specific enough. As an arts writer, I noticed I go straight to resume in the written portions. And I know there were some editing errors or strangely placed commas in the middles of sentences. So it wasn't quite as long of an artist resume as others with similar or less years of artistic experience under their belt. I know this artist said she has 4 to 6. So the commitment to career probably isn't as pressing as others. And then one thing that just really got to me was the photos. Many of the photos need to be much better quality on a completely flat surface, no warping in the 2D image piece, better, more consistent lighting. I know there was darker on one half and lighter on the other, being cropped squarely, things off center. If something was in a frame, the frame was cropped off. It looked like an iPhone photo. No glare. There was one thing where the glare kind of took over the image, or it was blurry or out of focus. And then the one with the award ribbon in it, we don't need, that was in the resume. We don't really need to see that. It kind of distracts from the piece. So those are my comments.
Just to add to what Caitlin said, I think this is another person that might benefit from a workshop on some of the basics of putting together the grant application, because it kind of seemed to jump around quite a bit. And in some areas where she would state the need for something, she would kind of counteract that 2 sentences later. And so I got confused on whether, did she really need it for this, or is she just putting everything into the soup pot that she wants to get? So.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I just said, like, in terms of the equipment, I understand that it's a wanted item. I don't particularly find it necessary for the type of work that she does. Like Rebecca was saying, I think she should spend a little more time exploring and definitely like clear up the grant application, but also in terms of her work, like explore more of her work and how to expand her medium more. It seemed like the primary reason for the laptop was research, communication, and workflow efficiency rather than the artwork itself. So I'm not seeing a MacBook specifically as needed. She could probably find an alternative, like a basic laptop to do all of her like admin needs. And then maybe later in her career transition to digital if that's something she's really wanting to do. But I saw, in looking at her samples, I saw a very textural and like collage, like assemblage base. And I'm wondering like what the real need is for the digital aspect right now. Like if she's really into that like texture and like those tactile like things in her work, then like explore that more rather than just trying to like jump at this equipment that I don't think is necessary at this time.
Anyone else? Okay, I believe we're ready to score, and we will start with David.
Thanks for the conversation. I would like to take 4 points off of need and impact for a total of 82.
Caitlin? Caitlin?
Oh, sorry, 63.
Jade?
I want to take 3 points off need and impact for a total score of 75.
Got that, Eileen?
Yes, yes, I got it now.
Okay, Kimberly?
80.
Jose?
I agree with everything that was said. I think I was grading on a slightly higher curve, but I'm going to keep my score at 91.
Samson?
Gave her an 86.
Rebecca?
I'm gonna counteract Jose and grade at the lower curve at 45.
And David?
I think Eileen has my new number of 82.
I do, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
Have I-
that, sorry.
Did I miss anyone, Eileen?
I think we've got everyone, right?
Okay, that's fine.
So that brings the total score to a 74.
And our next applicant is Shantae Stagger, and our first reader is Caitlin.
All right, Shantae is a DJ who is asking $2,000 towards cords, speakers, and microphones, starting with need and impact. I honestly couldn't tell you since the artist hasn't made a case for why this equipment was necessary for her. We can only make assumptions as to why it's needed. Does she have old equipment that needs to be replaced, or has been working with rented equipment and would like her own? We'll really never know with like the one sentence she gave us. All the written portions had very short responses. They're left feeling kind of vague. When she repeatedly brings up, quote unquote, offering multiple services to clients, I don't quite understand. That can mean a lot of things when she could have spent more time being really specific with like, what are those services perhaps? The written responses for questions 1 and 2 are essentially the same answer written with one sentence, whereas the answer for question 2 was just copied and pasted to answer question 3. Seeing how much time other grantees spent on their application, this kind of felt like a slap in the face to the other applicants, to be honest. It was not thought out at all, in my opinion. When we look at the artist's commitment to a career, it's clear she has quite a bit of experience DJing for different occasions, but since I'm not in the music industry, it's hard to tell if that experience is adequate for the 7+ years the artist says she's been in the business. There's also something in the application that said not to include years when you're a student, so I don't know it seems like she's fresh out of college perhaps. So I can't tell if she was adding in those years that she was a student, even though the application asks that you omit those years. So it's kind of hard to tell there too. Moving on to artistic excellence, Shantae has a know-how of smooth transitions from song to song. The artistic interventions or remixes to the songs are minimal, at least from the examples that we were given. The one video piece, for the Victoria's Secret, I mean, you can kind of see what was going on there. The iHeart Radio piece, it almost felt like a mixtape of artists' favorite songs, which isn't a problem, but it doesn't really show off the artist's ability with whatever equipment she might be using. The only sample that shows a bit more of the artist's work is that Victoria's Secret video piece where the artist is talking and it almost becomes kind of part of the song. I mean, regardless, you can really see the passion for this, but I felt like there wasn't enough to see what the artist is doing. If perhaps instead of doing this long mixtape, there were like shorter samples of work that you could actually go through and really, like, if we knew the song, we could understand what those kind of remixes or what kind of part she played in that, in the art of the work. When it comes to clarity and organization, it's not that it wasn't clear, there just wasn't enough information there with the actual grant questions. I also think that the artist's resume could use a little bit of paring down. I really enjoyed that it was clever and that it read like a promotional poster for the artist. I thought that was so cool. But, I really think, it needs to have a little bit more professional setting, and that typically wouldn't include like quotes from the artist or excessive photos in it. Another thing I noted was that the artist writes she's using the funds towards cords, speakers, and microphones. But when you look in like the budget, she later adds laser lighting effects bar, and then doesn't really explain further its purchase. So there's like a little bit of like an extra cost added in there, but then it wasn't really talked about. Unfortunately, the bottom line is I don't think there was enough to adequately review this artist here.
Others?
This is just a small little side item, but for proof of residency, I don't know if you all give them options of what they can do for proof of residency, but
We do.
she included her 30-page rental agreement. And that was a little much to go through after you've already gone through 10 grants.
Rental agreements are one of the ways to prove residency. Anybody else?
I'd just like to say that I do agree, and as much as I wanted to know more about this artist, and as intriguing as it was as a reviewer, to try to shift and think about how a DJ can present themselves as a fine artist, and there's no question in my mind that that's certainly the case. I think this applicant would really benefit from reviewing other kinds of publicly available grant proposals to better hone her own professional goals, especially as they relate to fine art, and also to kind of amplify and clarify what her accomplishments have been and how they kind of affect the civic nature of her work. All that would have been much, much more helpful in taking the application to a level that would have been easier to score.
So if the applicant is, participating on this, I strongly recommend the applicant to take that class or the presentation by Hillsborough County on how to write, the art grant application. It would definitely benefit her.
Anyone else? I think we're ready to score, and we will start with Caitlin.
I have a 39.
Jade?
I got some subtractions to do. I would like to take 13 points off clarity and organization. 5 points off artistic excellence. 5 points off commitment to career, and 10 points off need and impact, for a total score of 45.
So let's give Eileen a second here to put that all into the spreadsheet.
Okay, we can move on, Martine.
Okay. Kimberly?
I gave her a 92, but I would like to deduct 10 points for clarity and organization, please.
Jose?
I gave her an 85.
Sam?
I gave her a 41.
Rebecca?
I gave her a 50.
And David?
I'd like to take off 5 points from clarity and organization, take off an additional 5 points for artistic excellence for a total of 79.
Okay, that leaves her with a total score of 60.
All right, our next applicant is Michael Standard, and Jade is our first reader.
Okay, so I said Michael clearly demonstrates his passion for composing and performing and his knowledge of his need for the requested equipment. He has clearly defined goals and presents a unique approach to performance that adds an interesting element to the performing arts in Tampa Bay. I love the music of the museum performances, if you are watching this. His resume is well written and shows his commitment to his music career. He's highly engaged and active in the local music community and has even co-founded his own music series in Tampa Bay. Overall, the application was strong and very well written. He answers all the questions clearly and accurately, states exactly what he stands for, what he's requesting, and what he's going or what he wants to bring to the music community in Tampa Bay. And overall, I thought it was a strong application.
Other thoughts?
I would just reiterate that I was very impressed with the applicant's ability to generate and organize and create programs to showcase not only his own work, but that of the other musicians he works with.
Anyone
and also,
else?
oh, well, also, I just want to say he's another artist who mentioned efficiency. He begs, borrows, and steals his equipment, and he's in the past has had a diverse group of places where they perform, and he stressed how much easier it would be on him if he were to actually own this equipment, that it would just mean a lot to him and his ability to perform.
Other thoughts?
I'm not sure if these become public record, the applications themselves, or what the access is for other people to see them. But I thought his was definitely an application that maybe new people coming up that are interested in applying for a grant might want to take a look at to see a well laid out, well organized one, especially one that has the audio portions that is kind of.
We do make high scoring applications available to applicants so they can have sort of a roadmap to help them.
Mm-hmm.
David, were you?
Yeah, as a former percussionist in another lifetime, I really appreciated this application. While it was not a conflict of interest at all, I'm very familiar with the music scene at Hillsborough County Public Schools and higher education institutions here where Michael teaches. And so I was thrilled to read this. I'm just so happy that, that he reached out about this opportunity.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess we're ready to score. We'll start with Jade.
97.
Kimberly?
86.
Jose?
100.
Samson?
100.
Rebecca?
100.
David?
95.
And Caitlin?
93.
So the overall score is a 95.
Our next applicant is Jonathan Tulete, and our first reader is Kim Bryant.
So for Jonathan, under need. So he aims to make work needed by his culture. He's like reimagining the art process and how it's perceived. He hopes to participate both literally and symbolically in the creation of a new world that sort of like I said, reimagines how things are curated and how art is taught. And he is proposing new ideas for this through his art. He hopes to develop a stronger international community, and he plans to teach one day. I feel like his goals are right in line with his plan to spend the money by studying in Berlin. There he can develop a stronger international community with artists that he meets. He is in school, but will be finished by the time he would be going to Berlin and using this grant. He is working on his graduate degree. He is also teaching at the same time. I feel like he's very committed, obviously through his education and his workshops, and his hopes to broaden his technical skills. His art is a unique combination of found and made objects. It was unclear the meaning and the symbolism behind some of the pieces. That was one thing I kind of missed. It was like, I think an explanation would have made the art even better. His mission is very clear under clarity. His mission was very clear. But like I said, the stories of the sculpture were unclear. And I know that they had these very elaborate stories based on his mission and the way he's looking at the art world, that I wish I could have been more aware of what he was trying to show through his art.
Other thoughts?
I found his work really compelling, and it really challenges perhaps traditional notions of representation and meaning in contemporary art. I just thought that where he was proposing to study in Berlin would be a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful international opportunity for him at this juncture in his career. He's about to graduate from an MFA program and has expressed an interest in teaching. And I just think that this is, seems like it was really the right step for him to take at this point.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we're ready to score then. Kim?
87.
Jose?
100.
Samson?
100.
Rebecca?
89.
David?
87.
Caitlin?
92.
Jade?
96.
That leaves an overall score of a 93.
Our next applicant is Justin Thompson, and Jose is our first reader.
Justin Thompson is Tampa-based, and he applied under the 2D or 3D visual art. He's been a long-term glass blower, practicing for over 27 years. Most recently, he works at the Got Glass Studio in Seminole Heights. He has a real interest, has expressed an interest in a long-term interest in studying classical art and traditional methods of not just glass blowing, but also casting, and mentioned that he had recently bought a 3D printer, which has allowed him to really explore different forms for his glass blowing techniques. What he's looking for is a new computer that can run the latest softwares and the latest programs to further allow him to make use of the 3D printer. He has a very impressive body of work, beautifully photographed, very professional application. He's exhibited widely locally at the Morian. He has had work displayed in the Houston Museum of Contemporary Craft. He's in private and corporate public collections. I thought that it was all very straightforwardly presented, and there was a real connect between where he is professionally in his career and his new interests, and the need for a new computer to be able to really explore that interest even greater and with more ease.
Other thoughts?
I'll say that I think one of the only like little nitpicking things I have is with editing, maybe strange use of semicolons where an em dash would probably be a better choice for a better sentence flow. But other than that, I think glass is one of those mediums that sometimes feels like hindered by traditional techniques. Like it's extremely hard to make glass not beautiful, in my opinion. I like seeing how the artist navigates learning those techniques, but then putting his own contemporary twist on it, whether it's altering a vessel form. Usually when you're glass blowing, everything is on center. So seeing things like a little wacky or off center was like really kind of nice seeing that. And using different kind of color palettes in his work. I'm also glad that the artist added a sample of the 3D printing so you can get an idea of how he's going to use this technology and what it's going to perhaps look like when it's translated into glass later. I really like that his explanation kind of talked over, you know, the modeling is to make, you know, these molds to then do the casting into. So I felt like that was a good example of like showing that he's doing the research and he's putting the time and effort into this. So you can tell like this is something that's gonna happen, not something that's like kind of up in the air and that he doesn't really, you know, have the experience with the technology to back up his ideas.
Anyone else? Then I think we're ready to score. We'll start with Jose.
96.
Sam.
I like to bump my original score of 100 down to 95, 5 points off on clarity and organization.
Okay. Rebecca.
80.
David.
94.
Caitlin.
97.
Jade.
99.
Kim.
88.
Okay, that leaves an overall score of a 92.
All right, our next applicant is Elise Zotos, and Sam is our first reader.
Okay, Elise is a performance/musician artist. I found this application very hard to score. On one hand, she demonstrates a long history based on her resume and all the things she's done. A long history of being performance and creating music, lots of activities in the community. And she's asking for a very powerful laptop. I believe it's an Apple laptop so that she can record her music at home. So I see the need and impact, and I do see her commitment to career. On the other hand, my note says that all the samples of her work predates 2018. Which is not within the 2-year requirements that the application requires. But her resume does indicate that Ms. Zotos has been performing in the years 2019 and 2020. So I'm not very clear why she didn't include her latest work in her work samples. So I scored her low in the artistic excellence, clarity, and organization. Also, she has she listed her music on Discog, which is a website that offers her music for for downloads and purchase, and it stops in 1996. I did notice that she says she's been ill and she had surgery, but that contradicts her resume of performing in 2019 and 2020. So I was really confused about this applicant's application. Overall, I thought, she's very talented and she's very committed to her her art, her craft, but I thought the way she compiled her application was very confusing to me.
Other thoughts?
I would just, oh.
You go ahead. It's your turn now.
I would just agree. I really, there seems to be passion and commitment, but there were a lot of gaps just in the kinds of things that as a reviewer we were looking for. But at the same time, I kind of viewed it under the prism of this is someone who might really benefit from re-engaging her talents with some updated equipment and expresses a desire to share it. So I was looking at it through kind of that filter.
And then to go along with that, I think there were some editing errors in the main response body. And then I know the total cost error, it was listed as 50,000 instead of 5,000. I know little things here and there, but sometimes like that's what makes or breaks your application, is not taking this, you know, extra couple seconds to review it or have someone else kind of look over your shoulder before you submit it.
If not,
No,
then
you raise a good point, Caitlin, and this doesn't just apply to the last one we reviewed, but we've heard over and over, and to the artists who are listening, it is called a professional development grant. And you know, part of what we're placing faith in distributing the funds to artists who are committed not only to their work, but how the work is presented and their ability to talk about their work and share their work. And writing a grant is part of that professional development goal. And so it's important. It's important to put your best foot forward when seeking these kinds of opportunities.
Along with what Jose is saying, I may be aging myself. I mean, maybe things have changed, but it seemed like so many people had their resumes in backward order. Like the most current thing they did was at the very end, and they started like with 1982, you know, and I still kind of go on the mindset that the most recent thing they've done should be at the very top of the resume. And I found like 3 or 4 that had resumes that kind of seemed backwards. And that's just a nitpicky little thing, but
anyone else?
Irritated me.
Anyone else? Okay, let's score, and we'll start with Sam.
Gave her a 77.
Rebecca.
78.
David.
I'd like to take 4 points off of clarity and organization for a total of 90.
Caitlin.
I'm going to change my score from an 80, or excuse me, a 93 to an 80. I'm going to take 5 points off artistic excellence and 8 from clarity and organization.
I'm going to give Eileen a second or two.
Just 1 second. Okay, we can move on, Martine.
Okay, Jade.
I want to take 4 points off clarity and organization to make that 20. 4 points off need and impact for a 20. So 90.
Okay, we can move on.
Kimberly.
78.
Jose.
93.
I think that's everyone.
Okay, that brings the score to a total of 83.
Okay, well, that was our last applicant to review. You do have one more chance if you want to change your score. So I'm going to have Eileen go through the list and give us the name and the score, the average score. And at the end of this, if you want to make any changes, you can tell us, but this will be your last opportunity. So if you can do that for us, Eileen.
Yes, okay. So starting with Trent Alice is a 90. Then we have Lori Ballard next at an 84. And then Alicia Campos is an 87. Then we have Will Douglas, just one second, is a 95. Then Tyler Glenn is an 89. Julie Hara, a 78. Rebecca Kruger came to a 79. Anthony John Letourneau, I'm afraid I'm not saying that last name quite correctly, came out to a 56. Then we have Carrie, I'm going to say this last name wrong, but Oleskowitz, maybe, came out to a 92. Then we have Libby Ponce, came out to a 93. Liz Presley was a 94. Beth Smedley was a 74. Shante Stagger was, sorry, just one second, a 60. Then we have Michael Standard, who came out to a 95. Jonathan Tallett came out to a 93. Justin Thompson was a 92. And then finally, we have Elise Zotos at an 83.
Thank you, Eileen. Does anyone have any score change that they need to make? This is your last opportunity. Seeing none, this will be what stands. So first of all, I want to thank our panelists. I think for anyone watching, it's very evident that they put a lot of time and thought into the review of these applications. We simply could not do this without our panel of experts assisting us, and we really appreciate your help. I would also like to thank Eileen. She has a very thankless job in this process, but she managed it beautifully. Thank you, Eileen. We will be surveying both our panelists and our applicants to see how we can improve this process going forward. We're always looking for constant improvement at the Arts Council. So please be sure and give us your thoughts when you get that survey. And that pretty much concludes our business for the day. Again, we thank you all so very much and wish you a happy rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martine.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Eileen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.